My name is Fat Tony. I'm from Third Ward, Houston, Texas. I'm a musician. I'm an Aries. I love what I do, and I do what I love, and I really advise everybody to do the same.
If you love me, you gon' smile. If you hate me, you gon' frown. Either way, on any day, I still play the maid. When I roll around, throw the roses out with my crown. If you love me, you gon' smile. If you hate me, you gon' frown.
If you love me, you gon' smile. If you hate me, you gon' frown.
Okay.
Either way, I'm shooting K's. A7 trains, still rolling around with invisible tiles. Drained by the paint top.
Well, let's get right into it. Like, what'd you think about your set? Like, the set was pretty turned. I heard a couple of songs that you from that last tape, Smart Ass Black Boy, and so I was like, okay, yeah. And for even a title like that, Smart Ass Black Boy, we're gonna get into that in a little bit, but still, how'd you feel about the set? How you feel like people received your music?
I was happy with it. I really think we had one of the first sets of the day where people actually came to check it out because so many people that got here early, they went to the river or they went to their camping site. And, I was really happy that I was able to bring that married couple on stage to, like, renew their, like, vows and just tell the crowd how they met and just, fucking declare their love for the world to see. And
Speaking of that, those couple that you brought on the stage, was that like pre-planned or was it just kind of like you were talking to somebody like right before the show and then y'all
messaged me about it and asked if they could come on stage, and I thought that was a fantastic idea, so I told them, hell yeah. In the words of the great Stone Cold Steve Austin, hell yeah.
All right, definitely. So let's kind of get into like touring. We do notice like you're doing it all by yourself, really. I noticed in one interview you were saying how like back in the day you looked up to punk bands and how they would like do everything themselves. They would book their own shows. They would do everything. They didn't really need to rely on other things. So, and we noticed that you're following the same model now. Can you kind of tell us like what it's like being pretty much being your own business, Fat Tony, the business?
I've been in various levels of the music game, like putting out records myself, putting out records with a label, putting out records with a brand like a clothing company such as Volcom. And I think that doing things yourself is something that always should be important to you and your team, no matter what your situation is. If you're unsigned versus you being signed, you honestly have to do a lot of the legwork yourself. You have to come up with a lot of the concepts, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the strategies. And I'm lucky that I was able to implement that very early in my career and learn what it's like to at least do the bare minimum of every job that I need to be done for my music and for my business. And that's something that I just keep with me, I'm my own man. I don't need a manager.
Tell us like where you're from and how you came up on this Houston thing.
Sure. So I'm from Houston, from Third Ward. I'm from the same neighborhood as the icon Beyonce. I grew up loving music. My mom sang opera when she was young. My whole family had a wide range of music tastes. My mom loved pop and rock music like the Rolling Stones and Beatles, and she loved, classical music, opera, Axe records, style of soul music. My grandma, God rest her soul, loved gospel and country music, and my dad is from Nigeria, which is a country in Western Africa, if you've never heard of it. And he loves country music too, and like a lot of music from his home country. And he, grew up loving really popular reggae stars like Jimmy Cliff and Bob Marley. So I was born in 1988. So I was a baby during the heyday of Michael Jackson mania, you know what I mean? Michael Jackson's album Bad came out the year that I was born, and the great band Nirvana came around, and I was a big fan of them. And then I heard about Criss Cross, and I saw that they were kids like me, and they were rapping, and I loved that. Criss Cross was the first CD I ever bought. Any artist, any musician, it all starts as being a fan first, and that's something that I've never forgotten. I started rapping with my friends when I was in middle school. We had a little clique called Simply Throwed. I had a little rap group called Team Renegade. When I went to high school, I had a little rap group called the Low Ends, and I just kept it going. I made rap music with my friends. I played in bands with my friends. Music was always just a source of fun for me. Like, it was never a question, And I didn't start music thinking, I'm going to be doing stuff like this, like meeting guys like y'all or playing this festival. I just started making music because I loved music and I wanted to do it. And I think as long as you keep that mentality with you, you'll be happy no matter where you get in the game.
I was one track I wanted to ask you about in particular. It's the song about your dad. You were saying that the song was called Father's Day. Yeah, like everybody's got a dad, and you're just kind of like going in about your experience with your dad in music, and he kind of like let us know like what went into that song, like what led you to making that song.
You know what's funny? That was one of the first songs that I ever wanted to write when I started doing Fat Tony stuff like in 2008. And I didn't end up finishing that song for many years until 2013 when Smart Ass Black Boy came out. And it's just a song that I think is a common story. Like, many artists and musicians and creative people had people close to them that were not impressed by what they were doing. But there's a bigger message in that song, I think, more than just my dad not liking my music. And I'm glad that you were able to quote the line about everybody has a daddy. There's like people out there that didn't grow up with a dad around. They didn't get a chance to be chastised by their dad and belittled by their dad. Like, they still came from somewhere. And I think if people keep that mentality, they'll always have something to be proud of. Like, say you didn't have a dad in your life, or say your dad passed away, or say your parents broke up. That man, whoever he is, if you didn't know him, or who he is if you do know him, that is your father. And there's a lineage that you're coming from, and I think that's something really important to think about. No matter what your relationship is, I think that there should be a respect for your parents, and that's the ultimate message I was trying to get across with that song.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a lot of good things coming out of Houston. Like, as far as like you said, collaborations with other artists from Houston. What artists have you worked with, and which ones are you interested in working with in the future?
Houston guys that I've worked with before. I've worked with Bun B, who's one of my heroes and a good friend. Maxo Cream, Ill Fated, The Aspiring Me, Tim Woods. The list goes on and on, man. It's kind of hard to think about it all because I've been in music in Houston for so long. There's so many guys that I worked with. It would be endless if I named them all. Doe Beezy, Cab the Don, Double B, Dat Boy T. Me and Dat Boy T just put out a music video last week that we shot in Mexico. I'm a guy that's really about linking up with people and collaborating. Because my music heroes, Pharrell Williams from the Neptunes, said that the possibilities are endless when people are less concerned about who came up with the idea. Like, if you're able to put your ego aside and get a bunch of great artists, great musicians, great songwriters all in the same room and all vibe off each other and all edit each other and all just feel out what each other can add to that song, you can make something really magical.
That kind of reminds me of another thing. A lot of people complain about the Houston music scene. They say a lot of people have egos to the point that it's kind of hard to work together, kind of hard to collab. I mean, I've heard people like Zero say that. Some of the older cats say that. In your personal experience, have you experienced that?
Everyone does, because, dude, we're in entertainment. There are egos everywhere. You know what I mean? There's egos in the world, period, in any business or any industry, but I think it's especially true in music. And I think that the place where people often encounter the most spite or negativity is usually their hometown. So it makes sense that a rapper might have beef or have a disagreement with a guy that's from their neighborhood or from the next neighborhood over or from their city, or from people often think that they're fighting for this one thing that only one can get. Little do they know, if people come together, there's a much bigger pie out there. And I think that the late, great Pimp C made that very clear in his song Knocking Doors Down. Maybe more people should listen to the Pimp.
Doors Down, that was definitely a good reference. Definitely a good reference. I might have to listen to that today when I get back. I
encourage listening to UGK every day.
Let me go into the visuals, because I know you had a couple of videos out on YouTube, H-Town to L.A. All the songs I heard you do. I heard Double Dragon. I was pretty, was that like like a big moment for you?
Double Dragon and Smile's Black Boy were the first two albums I put out with a record label. I was signed to a label called Young One. Through my deal, they moved me to Los Angeles, and I made those two projects there.
And we know you had your guy Tom Cruise on there. Is he? No, what's that relationship like? Like, how did you and Tom Cruise
Tom
meet?
Cruise was one of the first guys that really believed in me and saw a lot of potential in me. He had a rap group called Supreme. They were from Atlanta. They were signed to Warner Brothers. They were mentored by a Los Angeles rapper named Murs. Found out that Tom Cruise had a lot of family here in Houston. He came to visit, met up with him, hit it off. We made some songs, and that relationship just kept on going and growing and growing. I was just telling someone earlier today, every time I go into any project, it always starts with the music first. You know, I'm down to link up with anybody and make a song. And if that song feels right, let's make another one. And if that feels right, let's make another one. If that feels right, let's make a project. If that project feels right and fans like it, let's go on tour.
Side projects. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
All right, tell us a little bit about some of these side projects you're working on.
One thing I'm doing right now is I have a new group called Charge It to the Game. It's me and a producer named Kyle Mabson. He's from L.A., and our sound is kind of influenced by an industrial sound, kind of like Nine Inch Nails or Ministry. And it's just basically him doing these really cool, interesting kind of experimental beats. Just put out our first project. It's an EP called Urban Hall of Fame because we couldn't get into the rock and roll one. And we're working on a full-length LP right now. Me and Tom Cruise are going to put out another EP soon. And me and P. Morris, who produced the Look EP, we're going to put out another EP too. I got a lot of interesting music coming out. I just want to keep experimenting, you know. Thanks to y'all for rocking with me, chopping up with me, getting to know me. Shout out to everybody watching this, listening to this. I got nothing but love for y'all. It's Fat Tony, straight out 3rd Ward. If you want to holler at me, all my social media is at Fat Tony Rap, FATTonyRAP. DM me, holler at me. Shout out to the Houston Outlet because they're covering new music out of Houston the right way.